Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Hi coach, my squat and deadlifts are terrible thanks to fukarounditis, and thankfully you have shown me the light. However, I find it hard progressing on these two exercises. My max lift is 76 kilograms body weight, or 105 kilo squat for 1 by 5, deadlift 135 for 5, bench press 120 kilos for 5, overhead press 70 kilos for 5, weighted chins, body weight plus 45 kilos for 5. I really want to build up my legs but keep hitting a wall and find it hard to progress. I've been following the cutting version of your novice program and have been progressing once per week due to boxing training impacting recovery. Thanks, Jason. All right, brother. A few things you need to look at. You're trying to serve two masters at one time. Now, I'm not telling you you can't eventually get to a 400 squat, like 180, 185 kilos, even at your body weight while boxing. It can be done. But here's what you need to look at. There's a couple things going on. Number one, you need to look at your fatigue management and stress management. Now, obviously, your boxing, looking at your name there, is very important to you. This is your primary goal. So your strength training will always take a backseat to it. But what you need to factor in is what's your total fatigue management look like? Are you getting enough sleep and rest and recovery to recover from your boxing and your strength training throughout the week? If not, you need to add more sleep in. Are you getting enough quality nutrition to handle everything? Right? Are you getting enough quality nutrition in? Or you make sure that you're not losing weight. Ideally, you might need to go and gain a little bit of weight, and you can always trim it back off. You might even need to do that in phases, because let's say you need to stay at a certain weight for your boxing. You might need to do 6-week bulks followed by shorter cuts to stay within a weight class. And you need to consider that you're not going to make gains during the little cuts, just maintain. You might have to do that back and forth because of your boxing needs. Also, you've got to start looking at, as far as your training goes, how much time are you taking between sets? A lot of people who do a lot of high conditioning sport like boxing tend to start getting into that bodybuilder mindset with their big barbell lifts of thinking, I'm going to take short breaks. And then they wonder why they're not able to do all 3 sets with a new weight. Right, because you're doing the 3x5 version. Well, you might need to take 5 or 6 minutes between those sets. If you're stalling and you're doing 2 and 3 minute breaks, I can tell you right now why you're stalling and not getting stronger. You're not taking long enough breaks to complete the sets. You're stimulating less strength, less hypertrophy, everything else. So you need to balance all these things out. Are you taking long enough breaks? Are you getting enough food? Are you getting enough sleep? Rest, recovery, fuel. Right, that's the name of the game. All right, next question. I'm at 7% body fat with ripped abs. I'm still insecure about taking my shirt off at the beach to impress women. What should I do? Should I go down to 2%? Now, this guy is actually a troll poster. I know, because he also posts trolly stuff in my training footage, but I leave him because he's kind of funny. But he hits upon something he's joking about, but it really is a big deal. And you see a lot of this with the guys who chase the aesthetics thing. One of the biggest problems I see is that people get really, really, really insecure about their bodies. They get really insecure about their bodies. I mean, look at me sitting here at just over 20% body fat, training in my singlet on the camera. I can tell you right now, most of those guys who in that mindset, they wouldn't dare do that. They would be so embarrassed. And that's the problem you have, is that you have these guys who build these extremely impressive physiques and get peeled and ripped, and then they still feel they're fat. They still feel they look terrible. And in spite of all their work, all their starvation, and whatever drug abuse or whatever else they do to get down to these ultra lean body fats, they're still embarrassed by their bodies. And it's really a sad thing. That's one of my biggest problems with the whole aesthetics world, is that it actually breeds insecurity. And it's really unfortunate. I think it's sad, and I don't mean that in a mocking way. I don't mean it to make jokes. I mean that it's really sad that you have people who will put that much work into something, that they will put enormous, mind-boggling amounts of effort into something and still be embarrassed by their results. And still be embarrassed by their results and still not be happy to the point to where they feel inadequate as a person. And that's sad. And I wish there's something we could do about that. And I think the only thing we can really do about that is to push people a little further away from so much obsession with the aesthetics thing. Because I've seen tons of cases of it. I've seen a lot of this in real life. And it's just, to me, it's really sad. Because it's so destructive to these people and their self-esteem to be in that situation. And I feel bad for them. One reason I'm kind of against the whole aesthetics community, I've just seen so much of this happen, and it really is terrible on these people. And I've seen some people come back from it, and I know at least one guy who has, but it took him almost dying to come back from that mindset. And that's a whole nother story. All right, next question. In the trap building video that Omar and Alpha just put out, he says to use your legs to get a heavy weight up into the top position of a much smaller contractive muscle. The growth happens when it yanks down on the muscles. Does this define a range of motion injury? Not really. It's basically, it sounds like cheat shrugs. I didn't watch the video. I don't know who said that, whether it was Omar or Strap On. The point is, that sounds like a cheat shrug to me. Right? Well, there are plenty of guys with massive traps who do cheat shrugs, who haven't injured their traps. Now, we could argue, is this possibly injurious? Does it have a lot of axial loading? Yeah, probably. So, we could argue if that's the best way to build traps. But, I guess the point would be, if you're trying to get mind-boggling traps, I don't mean traps the size of Alpha Destiny's, all right? Because he doesn't have big traps compared to guys who really have big traps. He really doesn't. Like, if you're to be happy with his size traps, you don't need to be incorporating these techniques. They aren't necessary. Rows and overhead pressing alone will get you there. But yeah, if you are trying to build the most massive traps possible to the point to where you look unaesthetic and you do not look good, and there are strength athletes who've done this, and I know of some, then yeah, doing heavy cheat shrugs with 900 or 1,000 pounds, the way they described, it seems to help them get there. But you need to keep in mind, this is a technique for an extreme goal. Not just saying, hey, I want to double the size of my traps. It's guys who want traps that literally go up to their ears and they don't look good anymore. Meaning they're disproportionate compared to the rest of their shoulder girdle. But some strength athletes do feel they get a little more out of their deadlift from doing this. And so, again, comes down to what your goals are. All right, next question. Hey Jason, I've heard a few strongmen talk about conditioning done after strength training. It seems to be HIIT/GPP, work mainly like sled drags, burpees, hill sprints, prowler pushes, battle ropes. Will this help or hinder gains? Am I right in thinking it will have positive effects such as adding additional volume for that workout and maybe promoting some extra capillarisation? Is the muscles involved? I don't see how it could be a bad thing if done after you've hit your program volume for the session. Thanks, champ. Like with anything else, it can have benefits. It's additional training volume. Yeah, you can get hypertrophy in there. Sled drags, farmer's walks, prowler pushes, those can actually induce hypertrophy in addition to conditioning. Here's the question I ask. How could it hurt? You can overtrain. You could have so much volume that you're not able to adapt and recover from the session to session, and you end up having to reduce the frequency or reduce the progress on your main lift. So it could absolutely hurt. The question becomes, do you have the work capacity built to handle it? How does it fit into your total training volume? These are what people need to be asking, and I don't know how to stress this enough. Everything you do has to have a training economy, right? Again, you go back, Dr. Mike breaks this stuff down fantastically well, Dr. Mike Israetel, talking about minimum effective volume versus maximum recoverable volume. You need to be somewhere between the two. So that includes your GPP work, that includes your conditioning work. How does it fit into the grand scheme of things? Now, if your goal is purely size and strength without any additional conditioning, if you've got recovery left to go do 30 minutes of GPP after your workout, you didn't do enough squats and deadlifts. You could make that argument. But if you're trying to be more well-rounded, then you would reserve some of your recovery to do this stuff. And like with anything else, you need to add it in slowly. You need to slowly build work capacity up, because work capacity is a dynamic thing. You don't have a fixed amount of work capacity. It's something you can improve over time. But you need to keep in mind, a lot of these strongmen, number one, have enormous work capacities built from years of doing it. Number two, on massive amounts of anabolics that improve work capacity and recovery. So don't exclude that factor. If you're not doing the latter, it's going to take you years to build that work capacity to do what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually, I think it's fantastic if you can build the work capacity for it and you want to be more overall athletic. I think it's a good idea. But you need to ease it in slowly and gradually. You don't just jump straight into doing bunches of GPP after your training and not expect to stall. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hey Jason, I'm almost 10 weeks into my cut and lost about 10 pounds so far. I'm 175 pounds at the moment. I've only lost a bit of strength in my pressing movements. I somehow managed to drop from 330 bulking calories to 1800 currently, and I'm only losing weight if I do a decent amount of cardio. I think I might have messed up my metabolism, and I've got another 8 pounds to lose, and I'm getting really impatient, I'm afraid. I will have to drop my calories further in order to lose more weight. What should I do? I'm sick and tired of dieting, and I just want to get it over with. Thanks, coach. Okay, you have an eating disorder. All right, let's just call it like it is. You've developed an eating disorder on this cut. Any man, you're weighing 175 pounds. You were able to get up to whatever, 185 on 3,300 calories, doing all your strength training and everything. You thought at some point it would be a good idea to drop to 1,800 calories as a healthy athletic male, not using anabolics to preserve muscle. You just developed an eating disorder. That's not a sane number of calories for you to cut on. You're losing pressing strength. What's that tell you? Tells you you're losing muscle. In 10 weeks, you lost 1 pound a week for 10 weeks. Only a 10-pound weight loss over a long period of time. You've lost pressing strength. All right, you're losing muscle. The reason the scale has stalled is water retention. There's no way you aren't losing tissue every week on 1,800 calories. All right, you're probably losing a pound or two, up to 2 pounds every week right now. But because you've dropped your calories so low and you're so stressed, because you're talking about how sick you are of it, you're almost in a panic mode, you just want to get it over with, your cortisol and everything is elevated, and you're holding additional water. So a lot of times people will come in and these diet gurus will say, well, you need to up your calories. Then all of a sudden you up your calories and you start losing weight, right? And you think you magically reboosted your metabolism. No, you lowered your cortisol levels and your stress hormones by eating more, by adding more carbs back in. And then the water weight swooshes off and you get down to the real body fat and weight that you really are at without the extra 5-6 pounds of water retention. I can assure you there is no model for human metabolism in the world that will allow you at this point to have stalled on weight loss on 1,800 calories as a 175-pound male who is lifting and doing cardio. It is not biologically possible. Your calories are too low and you're holding water due to stress hormones. You have lost muscle mass. You need to sort this out. Get your head straight, brother. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.